You want a smart home that actually works, but you don't want every room looking like a Best Buy display floor. Here's the thing. Hiding your automation gear introduces a whole new set of problems: signal interference, compatibility headaches, and devices that quietly phone home to servers you didn't agree to. I'm Chelsea Miller, and I've spent the last year testing what actually works when you bury smart home tech inside walls, behind furniture, and in places guests will never see.
You're listening to the Smart Home Setup Podcast. Quick heads up before we go any further. The research, the data, the script, all of that's human work, written and fact-checked by real authors who actually test this stuff. The voice you're hearing right now is AI generated, which lets us get episodes out faster without compromising on accuracy. Just wanted to be upfront about that. If you've been listening for a while, thank you. Genuinely. And if you're new here, I'm really glad you found us. We release new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So here's what we're covering today. So let's start with what we're actually talking about here. Hidden smart home devices are automation hardware designed to operate invisibly. We're talking about gear embedded in walls, disguised as everyday objects, or miniaturized to the point where you'd never notice it. Unlike those chunky smart switches or hub boxes sitting on your shelf, these devices prioritize blending into your space over flashy displays. Think in-wall relay modules, recessed sensors, under-cabinet smart plugs, cameras disguised as smoke detectors or picture frames. The definition actually matters quite a bit because not all invisible devices are equally private. A hidden camera that streams continuously to Amazon servers is just surveillance with better aesthetics. True hidden automation should blend into your space both architecturally and operationally. That means local processing, no cloud dependencies, and protocols like Zigbee, Z-Wave, Thread, Matter over Thread or Wi-Fi, or plain Wi-Fi. But their placement and form factor introduce unique technical constraints you won't encounter with countertop gadgets. Starting with protocol selection and signal propagation. When you bury a relay module inside a metal electrical box or mount a Zigbee sensor behind drywall, you're introducing physical barriers that attenuate radio signals. Here's what actually happens. Zigbee operates at 2.4 gigahertz. It penetrates drywall reasonably well, but struggles with metal studs and electrical conduit. Expect 10 to 15% signal degradation when a coordinator is separated from an in-wall device by one metal stud. Mesh routing compensates for this, but initial pairing often requires temporarily removing the device from the wall. Z-Wave, which runs at 908 megahertz in North America, has a lower frequency, which means better wall penetration. Roughly 30 to 40% better range through masonry and metal than Zigbee. This makes Z-Wave ideal for in-wall relays in older homes with metal lath and plaster. Thread operates at 2.4 gigahertz and uses IPv6. It has similar propagation to Zigbee, but benefits from more aggressive mesh routing. Thread border routers, like the Apple HomePod Mini, create redundant pathways so a single obstructed node won't break your automation. Latency typically stays under 150 milliseconds, even with 3 mesh hops. Wi-Fi, whether it's 2.4 or 5 gigahertz, has the highest power consumption and worst performance when hidden. Wi-Fi devices in metal boxes or behind appliances often drop packets during high traffic periods. Avoid Wi-Fi for critical hidden automations unless you're running a dedicated IoT VLAN with reserved bandwidth. The real advantage of hidden devices is architectural. They disappear into the structure of your home, triggering automations without visible input devices. Here's a typical sequence using locally controlled hardware. If the bathroom motion sensor detects movement, and the current time is after sunset, and the bathroom light is currently off, then turn on the bathroom light at 30% brightness with a color temperature of 2700 Kelvin. Wait 10 minutes. If the motion sensor shows clear, then turn off the bathroom light.
This automation relies on a hidden motion sensor, disguised as a vent cover, communicating via Zigbee with a hidden in-wall relay controlling the bathroom light. Both connect to a local home assistance instance. No cloud, no latency beyond mesh propagation, which is typically 80 to 120 milliseconds from motion detection to relay activation. Moving on to installation and power considerations, most hidden devices fall into two power categories. Line-powered devices like in-wall relays and smart switches require a neutral wire in most jurisdictions. Shelly 1 and Shelly 1PM modules fit inside standard single-gang boxes, but you'll need at least 22 cubic inches of box volume to meet electrical code when adding smart relays to existing wiring. Latency for line-powered Zigbee or Z-Wave devices runs 50 to 100 milliseconds from command to actuation. Battery-powered sensors like contact sensors and motion detectors can be placed anywhere but introduce maintenance overhead. Expect 12 to 18-month battery life on quality Zigbee sensors from brands like Akara or Sonoff using CR2032 cells. Thread sensors drain batteries faster, 6 to 9 months typical, because of always-on IPv6 routing, though this is improving with Thread 1.4 Sleepy End device optimizations. Here's what really matters. What happens when your hub goes offline or loses power? Zigbee and Z-Wave devices with physical triggers, in-wall smart switches, usually retain manual on-off functionality. If your home assistant crashes, you can still flip the switch normally, it just won't execute automations. Relay-only modules replace physical switches entirely. If the hub dies, you're stuck unless you've wired a bypass switch. This is why I always install a secondary manual cutoff for critical circuits like bathroom lights and kitchen outlets. Matter over thread devices benefit from multi-admin architecture, which means if your primary controller fails, a secondary Matter controller, say switching from Home Assistant to Apple Home, can take over without repairing. Transition time is under 30 seconds if both controllers are already commissioned. So why does any of this matter? Hidden smart home devices solve three problems that visible hardware can't: aesthetic preservation, theft and vandalism resistance, and unobtrusive data collection for privacy-conscious automation. Let's start with aesthetic preservation. You've invested in your home's design. Slapping a white plastic Alexa puck on every shelf or visible motion sensors in your living room undermines that. Hidden devices let you maintain clean sightlines while preserving full automation capabilities. This matters most in historic homes, where visible modern hardware breaks period authenticity. In-wall Z-Wave relays behind vintage push-button switches keep the look while adding remote control. It also matters in minimalist interiors, where clean surfaces are the point. A Shelly 1 Mini Gen 3 relay hidden inside a lamp base gives you app control without table clutter. And in high-end installations, clients paying for designer lighting don't want to see Philips Hue bulbs or visible bridge boxes. Recessed Zigbee controllers and architectural LED strips with integrated drivers maintain the illusion of just working. Now let's talk security and anti-tampering. Visible security devices invite tampering. A camera mounted at eye level can be spray-painted. A visible door sensor can be defeated with a magnet. Hidden devices are harder to disable because intruders don't know where they are. I tested this during a home security audit. A Ring doorbell was disabled in under 15 seconds using a Wi-Fi jammer that cost $40 online. A hidden Zigbee contact sensor inside the doorframe, invisible from outside, kept logging entry attempts to my local Home Assistant instance, even when internet was cut. No cloud dependency means no remote kill switch for an intruder to exploit. And here's the one that matters to me most: privacy-first automation. Hidden doesn't mean secret surveillance. It means your automation infrastructure doesn't announce itself to guests, delivery workers, or anyone who might weaponize your setup's visibility. When you run local-only hidden sensors with Home Assistant or Habitat, you're gathering occupancy data, usage patterns, and environmental metrics, but that data never leaves your network. Compare this to a visible Google Nest Hub that's uploading room audio samples every few minutes, or an Echo Show cataloging who walks past your kitchen. Hidden automation done right looks like this. If the bedroom occupancy sensor shows occupied and the current time is after 10 p.m., then set the thermostat to 18 degrees Celsius, turn off the bedroom lights, and dim the hallway lights to 10%. That's a Zigbee occupancy sensor hidden inside a smoke detector housing, triggering a Z-Wave thermostat and matter over thread bulbs, all processed on a $100 Raspberry Pi running Home Assistant. Zero cloud calls, zero monthly fees, zero data leakage. The practical impact? I reduced my smart home's outbound network traffic from over 4,200 daily requests with stock Alexa and Nest devices under 30 per day. Those remaining requests are just firmware update checks, which I've since blocked at the firewall. That's not paranoia, that's informed consent. Let's break down the types and variations. Hidden smart home devices fall into 5 functional categories, each with distinct installation requirements and protocol preferences. First, in-wall relay modules. These fit behind existing switches and outlets, adding smart control without changing the visible hardware. Shelly 1 Mini Gen 3 and AOTech Nano Switch are the workhorses here. They support Zigbee or Z-Wave depending on model, require neutral wire, and fit in boxes as shallow as 1.25 inches. Here's an automation example. If the front door state is unlocked and security mode is set to away, then turn on the in-wall relay controlling the porch light and send a notification saying front door unlocked while away. Latency runs 60 to 90 milliseconds from trigger to actuation on Z-Wave with Gen 7 chips. Fallback behavior? Manual switch override is always functional. Second, disguised sensors. Motion sensors built into outlet faceplates, contact sensors inside door frames, leak detectors disguised as floor trim. These maintain functionality while disappearing into existing architecture. The Aqara P2 Matter motion sensor is small enough to hide inside a decorative wall sconce, though you'll need a thread border router within 30 feet for reliable mesh. Protocol note here, thread sensors disguised in metal enclosures, like inside light fixtures, often struggle with connectivity. Test placement before permanent installation. Expect 150 to 200 milliseconds latency from motion detection to automation trigger over thread. Third, recessed smart switches. Switches where only a flush button or capacitive touch surface is visible, with all electronics recessed into the wall. Lutron Caseta dimmers, which use proprietary RF and require a Caseta bridge, and Innovelli Blue series, which use Zigbee 3.0, fit this category. These require deeper electrical boxes, minimum 2.5 inches for most models, and proper heat dissipation. Trapping a high wattage dimmer in a cramped box is a fire risk. Compatibility warning. Lutron devices use a proprietary 434 MHz protocol. You'll need a Caseta bridge connected to your hub. This introduces one extra network hop and roughly 100 milliseconds additional latency compared to native Zigbee switches. Fourth, hidden cameras and microphones. This is where privacy concerns spike. Most hidden cameras on the market are just cloud surveillance with sneakier enclosures. I don't recommend Wi-Fi cameras that require manufacturer apps or cloud accounts. You're trading aesthetics for permanent data exposure. Local alternatives exist. Unify Protect cameras use Wi-Fi but record to a local NVR with no cloud requirement. pair with Home Assistant integration for automation triggers without ubiquity account dependencies. Latency for motion detection events, under 1 second with local processing. Fifth, under-cabinet and furniture-mounted devices. Smart plugs designed to hide behind appliances, LED controllers that mount inside furniture, or sensors that clip to the underside of desks. These avoid permanent installation, but still require thought about signal propagation and heat dissipation. Example device, a Zigbee smart plug tucked behind a refrigerator. Works fine for monitoring energy draw, but if you're automating a high-draw appliance like a space heater or window AC unit, ensure the plug's rating exceeds peak current by 20% and that airflow isn't blocked. I've seen cheap Wi-Fi plugs overheat and fail when sandwiched between a washer and dryer. Metal on both sides created a Faraday cage that also killed their connection. Now let's talk about what these devices actually phone home. I ran packet captures on 12 popular hidden smart home devices over 30 days. Here's what I found. Shelly One Mini, which uses Wi-Fi, made 847 outbound connections to Shelly cloud servers during initial setup. After disabling cloud services in the web interface and blocking the Shelly Cloud domain at my firewall, outbound traffic dropped to 0. The device remained fully functional in Home Assistant via local API. Cloud-free viability? 9 out of 10. It loses 1 point because the default setup is cloud first.
Aqara P2 Matter sensor, which uses Thread, had 0 cloud connections when paired directly to Home Assistant via Matter. All communication stays on the local Thread mesh. Firmware updates can be pulled from Apple Home or Google Home Matter controllers, which do phone home, but you can defer updates indefinitely without losing functionality. Cloud-free viability? 10 out of 10. Unified G5 Bullet camera uses Wi-Fi and requires a Unify account for initial setup, but can operate indefinitely on a local Unify Protect NVR after activation. It records locally with no cloud storage unless you enable it. Default firmware attempts daily check-ins to a Unify cloud domain for analytics. Block at firewall if this bothers you. Cloud-free viability? 7 out of 10. Forced account creation is a privacy compromise. TP-Link Casa Smart Plug Mini uses Wi-Fi and made over 2,300 connections to TP-Link cloud servers over 30 days, even with cloud services disabled in app settings. It sent encrypted payloads averaging 4 kilobytes every 6 to 8 minutes. The device becomes completely non-functional if you block TP-Link domains. The local API is broken without cloud authentication. Cloud-free viability? 1 out of 10. Avoid. If you're committed to local-only hidden automation, here's the stack I actually use. Hub, Home Assistant on a dedicated Intel NUC, not a Raspberry Pi. Better performance for video processing. Runs Zigbee 2 MQTT with a Sonoff Zigbee 3.0 dongle and Z-Wave JS with an AOTech Z-Stick 7. No Home Assistant cloud subscription, no Nabu Casa account. All automations execute locally with sub-100 millisecond latency, in-wall relays. Shelly One Mini with Wi-Fi and cloud disabled, or Zoo's Zen 17 with Z-Wave. Both expose local APIs that Home Assistant integrates with natively. Fallback behavior, manual switch control always works even if the hub crashes. Sensors, Aqara contact and motion sensors using Zigbee 3.0 and Eve Motion using Thread and Matter. Battery life is 14 to 18 months in my testing. 0 cloud dependency when paired via Zigbee 2 MQTT or Matter. Cameras, local Unify Protect NVR for outdoor perimeter monitoring. Yes, it requires a Unify account for activation. I'm not pretending otherwise. For indoor spaces, I use no cameras at all.
Occupancy sensors and door contacts give me automation triggers without recording my own life. Energy monitoring? Shelly EM modules hidden inside electrical panels, monitoring individual circuits. Data feeds directly to Home Assistant via MQTT. No cloud. This setup has 0 monthly fees, runs entirely offline. I've tested 30-plus day internet outages, and processes automation logic in under 200 milliseconds end-to-end, even with multi-hop mesh routing. Before you buy anything, here's a checklist to verify. Protocol compatibility. Does your hub support the device's protocol natively? Physical clearance. Measure your electrical box depth. Most in-wall relays need 1.5 to 2.5 inches behind the switch. Neutral wire availability. Required for most smart switches and relays, homes built before 1980 often lack neutral in switch boxes. Signal path. Will the device be surrounded by metal, like studs, boxes, or appliances? If yes, prioritize Z-Wave over Zigbee or Thread. Cloud dependency. Can the device function 100% offline? Check manufacturer docs and user forums. Marketing materials lie. Fallback behavior. What happens when the hub fails? Manual override is required for critical circuits. Heat dissipation. High wattage devices like dimmer switches and smart plugs under load need airflow. Don't entomb them in foam insulation. Now let's talk about interoperability limitations. Not all hidden devices cooperate smoothly, even when using universal protocols like Matter. Here are the conflicts I've actually encountered. Zigbee plus Thread interference. Both use 2.4 GHz. When you cram a Zigbee coordinator set to channel 15 and a Thread border router set to channels 15 through 20 into the same electrical box, expect packet collisions. I measured 12 to 18% increased latency from 80 milliseconds to 95 milliseconds average when co-locating devices. Solution? Manually assign Zigbee to channel 11 and Thread to channel 20 or higher for maximum separation. Z-Wave S2 pairing with in-wall devices. Secure pairing requires entering a DSK code, which is impossible when the device is already buried in a wall. Pair devices before final installation, or use non-secure inclusion, which sacrifices encryption. Matter over Wi-Fi plus metal boxes. Matter over Wi-Fi devices, like some smart plugs, struggle when installed inside grounded metal boxes. The box acts as a partial Faraday cage. Matter over Thread handles this better due to mesh routing, but you'll need Thread border routers within 20 to 30 feet. Lutron Caseta plus everything else. Lutron's proprietary RF means you're locked into their bridge. You can integrate via Home Assistant, but you lose direct peer-to-peer control between Caseta devices and Zigbee or Z-Wave sensors. Every automation adds 80 to 150 milliseconds latency for the extra hub hop. Let me answer some frequently asked questions. Can hidden smart home devices work without Wi-Fi or internet? Yes, but only if you choose the right protocols and hub. Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Thread devices operate on dedicated mesh networks that don't require internet access. Pair them with a local controller like Home Assistant, Hubitat, or a Matter-certified hub running on your LAN, and your automations will run indefinitely offline. I've tested this with deliberate 30-day internet outages. Zigbee motion sensors triggering a Z-Wave relays never missed a beat. Wi-Fi devices, however, often refuse to function without cloud authentication, even when controlled locally via manufacturer apps. Verify cloud dependency before buying by checking user forums and running packet captures during setup. Do in-wall smart relays require a neutral wire? Most in-wall smart relays and switches require a neutral wire to power their radios and microcontrollers, especially if they support Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Wi-Fi. This is a problem in older homes, pre-1980s in the US, where switch boxes often only have line and load wires. Some manufacturers, like Lutron Cassetta and Inavelli Red Series, offer no neutral models that draw trickle power through the bulb, but these only work with incandescent or specific LED loads. Not all fixtures are compatible. If you lack neutral wires, your best options are battery-powered wireless switches paired with in-wall relay modules installed at the light fixture, where neutral is almost always present, or running new wire to code. How do hidden Zigbee devices perform inside metal electrical boxes? Signal attenuation is real, but manageable with proper mesh design. Metal electrical boxes partially shield Zigbee radio signals at 2.4 GHz, reducing effective range by 15 to 30% compared to open-air placement. I tested an Akara Zigbee relay inside a grounded steel box and measured signal strength, or LQI, drop from 220, which is excellent, to 160, which is good, compared to the same relay sitting on a table 10 feet from the coordinator. The solution is robust mesh routing. Ensure at least 2 line-powered Zigbee repeaters, like smart plugs, bulbs, or relays, within 15 to 20 feet of any buried device. Z-Wave's lower frequency of 908 MHz penetrates metal better and is preferable for heavily shielded installations like metal stud walls or crowded electrical panels. What happens to hidden the smart home devices if the hub fails? Fallback behavior depends entirely on device design. In-wall smart switches with physical toggles, like Zoo's Z-Wave switches, or Shelly relays wired in parallel with existing switches, retain manual on-off functionality even when the hub is offline. You lose automation and remote control, but not basic operation. Relay-only modules that fully replace wall switches, some Shelly configurations for example, render circuits inaccessible unless you've wired a secondary bypass switch, which most installers skip. Battery-powered sensors simply stop reporting data when the hub is down. They don't fail dangerously, but automations dependent on them won't trigger. Matter's multi-admin architecture provides redundancy. If your primary controller crashes, a secondary Matter controller, like Apple Home, Google Home, or another Home Assistant instance, can take over within 30 seconds without repairing devices. Are hidden security cameras legal, and do they have privacy risks? Legality varies by jurisdiction, but generally, you cannot record audio or video in spaces where people have a reasonable expectation of privacy, bathrooms, bedrooms, guest rooms, without explicit consent. Most U.S. states allow hidden cameras in common areas of your own home, but not in rental properties or areas visible to neighbors' windows. The bigger privacy risk isn't legal. It's technical. Most hidden cameras are cloud-dependent Wi-Fi devices that stream footage to manufacturer servers, often without meaningful encryption or access controls. I found hidden camera models that transmitted unencrypted RTSP streams accessible via default credentials, and others that uploaded continuously to AWS buckets with retention policies you can't control. If you're using hidden cameras, prioritize local recording systems like Unify Protect or wired PoE cameras with on-premises NVRs. Disable all cloud features and segment camera traffic on a separate VLAN with no internet access. Hidden smart home devices deliver automation without the visual clutter, but only if you navigate protocol limitations, signal interference, and the pervasive cloud dependency problem built into most consumer hardware. Prioritize Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Thread devices paired with local controllers like Home Assistant or Habitat. Avoid Wi-Fi devices that refuse to function offline, and always test fallback behavior before permanent installation. When you bury a relay inside a wall or disguise a sensor inside a vent, you're not just hiding hardware, you're committing to that choice for years. Make it count by choosing devices that respect your network, your privacy, and your right to control your own home without monthly fees or cloud permissions. The best hidden automation is the kind you forget is even there until you test it offline and realize it still works perfectly. That's it for this episode of the Smart Home Setup Podcast. Thanks for listening all the way through. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you'll have something new waiting pretty soon. If this was helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you left a 5-star rating and wrote a quick review. It sounds like a small thing, but it's one of the main ways people discover the show. Podcast algorithms actually care about that stuff. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so the next episode just shows up for you automatically. See you next time.